If you've been following the history of Adventism, you know that for many, many years, the message is communicated in various ways. Some of the oldest magazines, the Adventist Review and Herald, now it's called the Adventist Review, and depending on the conference that you are associated with, it could be anywhere from the Pacific Union Recorder to the regional magazines that may be a part of your conference, and the Herald magazine, whatever it may be. But one of the most pertinent and formative magazines that our church offers to urban centers and for the African American work is Message Magazine. Now, it's not specifically just for African Americans, but it does give some rich information and rich history about the heritage of the Adventist Church as it pertains to the African American church. And so when we were at the General Conference session, we had a chance to sit down and talk with Samuel Thomas Jr., who was formerly connected with 3ABN. You may remember him. And he shared with us some of the very important messages and how Message Magazine is going and growing. And Shelley Quinn had an opportunity to sit down and interview him. And so sit back and listen to what he had to say about this very important magazine.
Perhaps you've heard of Message Magazine. If not, here to speak with us today is Pastor Samuel Thomas Jr., who is the Director of Marketing for Message Magazine. Pastor Samuel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shelley. It's good to be here.
Please explain to us, what is the Message Magazine all about, and how does this tie in with the church?
Well, Message Magazine has historically been developed, or was developed, as a special instrument of instruction, biblical instruction, and spiritual enlightenment for people of color. Now, that's where it started in the late 1800s. It started out actually under the name of the Gospel Herald, and so that gives us a good sense of its roots. But it transitioned at the turn of the 20th century into the name The Message Magazine, and then now Message Magazine. The wonderful thing about Message Magazine, it was designed to reach our urban population or our metropolitan centers. Through the years, it has continued to kind of restructure itself so that it can now reach a multiple audience within our urban setting, because the urban demographic has shifted so widely. One of the things we're very proud of is that it has been the most successful as an evangelistic means or as an evangelistic magazine. That has been unique for this magazine because it addresses contemporary issues. It will deal with things such as abortion or divorce, or the issues such as wars and are they valid, you know, issues that pertain to the great controversy subjects. Those things that many people within the setting of our cities don't really have a biblical knowledge of. So we're excited about Message Magazine and some of the things that God has been doing with it, not only historically, but also in contemporary times.
And this magazine is published by the Review and Herald.
It is.
Which is our oldest, for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the oldest publisher. I'm looking at this very lovely magazine that you have done a special Atlanta issue for the General Conference. And on the front cover, you have the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. Then on the back cover, you have an advertisement for an evangelistic series by Mark Finley. Tell us about the distribution of this special issue.
Well, let me do that as I share with our audience, you know, what this magazine looks like. This magazine was designed specifically for the Atlanta audience. We recognize that if we wanted to have an impact, make a difference with the Atlanta audience, that we needed to actually engage someone that was significant. The mayor of Atlanta, Mr. Reed, is actually the youngest of all the city mayors within the United States of a major metropolitan city. So we had an opportunity to interview him. Our editor, Dr. Washington Johnson, met with him, and we incorporated that in this issue. Mark Finley, who we all know and love, one of our great evangelists, recognized the value of connecting with our long-range plan of distributing this magazine to the citizenry of this city. He took a full-page ad on the back, which allowed people to become acquainted with the evangelistic series that he did prior to General Conference. Inside the magazine, aside from the health emphasis and the truth about lottery that's in here, that article, there's a special discussion point on the Sabbath, which we wanted to get in front of all of the citizens that we possibly could. it was interesting that the conferences, the regional conferences came together within the United States and said, let's sponsor this as a gift to 100,000 citizens. Now, let me tell you the extreme value of that, Shelley. We know from an auditing service, it's called the Circulation Bureau of Auditors, where they actually can tell us the value, or kind of like the lifespan of a magazine. Our periodical actually, when given to one person, has the connection power of 2.5 individuals. So when we distribute that one magazine, we know that potentially 3 people can be benefited by what's in this magazine. We also know this, Shelley, that a magazine has a staying power that's powerful. And that is, when you give a magazine to a person, they may like a particular article, then put it down. Somebody else comes along, picks it up, and reads another article. So sometimes it's a little bit different than a book, because we give a book to a person, they like a subject, and they may resonate with it or not. But a magazine has the opportunity to actually have multiple points of contact. That's what we call it. There's a health section in here that we become known for. People who have a health emphasis or interest in their lives, they'd see that, and maybe they don't care about the spiritual issues or the spiritual instruction, but they'll resonate with the health emphasis, eventually turning to the spiritual.
And I noticed here that you have an article in this on, I guess you could call this social, or you could call it social and spiritual, I Do Forever.
Sure.
So this would be something that would appeal to women immediately.
Correct.
To pick this up.
Correct.
Because divorce is such a problem.
It is. And truthfully, you know, when we had this article included about marriage, I mean, we actually structured everything in this magazine to get the greatest mileage, use that term, you know, in the community. So we haven't had a chance with all the busyness at General Conference to identify exactly the far-reaching impact, but I do want you to know this. I talked to one of the coordinators, Pastor Calvin Watkins, who was here in Atlanta, for how effective it was. This is what he said. Shelley, you'll be stunned. He said, Samuel, we have distributed 100,000 copies in 2.5 hours. So when this was distributed to those groups, you know, those small cells around the city at different train stops and malls and here and there, they had no problem having individuals to walk up saying, oh, I'd like a copy of that. They saw the mayor. Yes. It immediately resonated with them. Even though they're unfamiliar with the product, you know, they're not sure what it really is. But we built it that way. We published it that way, knowing that we'd have the greatest level of response that way. And God has always been directing. Let me also share this very quickly with you, that in addition to this particular distribution, we want to look back. And about a year ago, year and a few months, we distributed 100,000 copies on the mall in Washington. You know, that's between the Washington Monument and Capitol Hill. And all those people that gathered for that historical event, regardless of whatever your political persuasion, it was a significant event. So we saw that
event was the inauguration of Obama.
Yeah, that's correct. So we saw that as a wonderful opportunity. The Lord inspired us. Get message out there, distribute it widely. So we distributed 100,000 copies at that event as well. And I want our viewing audience to understand that when we say we distributed it, we didn't ask for any money from anyone that received it. We went out there, you know, soliciting funds or contributions. We just passed it out, free literature to everyone that was willing to receive it. So we know that this is the wave of the future. We want to see exciting numbers beyond 100,000. We're looking for an opportunity to do 250,000 in a place like New York City, because we believe that when we get this out in the communities, people will accept it, receive it, and grow.
How are these special editions, these special issues, the distribution, how is that funded?
It's funded generally by our conferences coming together and making a contribution from their evangelism funds. That's what's been happening here to date. However, if people want to be a part of that, they can just go to messagemagazine.org, and we have set up a PayPal website where they can make a contribution to Message Magazine and become a partner with Message Magazine, because we even have inmates. We send this free to people behind bars. So we are always looking for individuals to spread the message to.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you've come to share this today. And if someone out there knows that in their metropolitan area, it doesn't even have to be a metropolitan area, but
certainly,
if they have some special event and perhaps they have that budget set aside for evangelism,
right,
this is something that they could use to really reach out to the community.
That's correct.
Well, it is a beautiful ministry. You're obviously doing a very good job as Director of Marketing. We thank you so much for coming by and visiting with us today. So remember, it's messagemagazine.org if you'd like to get some more information. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Shelley Quinn and Samuel Thomas Jr. We'd like to say much continued success and blessings to Message Magazine as it reaches out and continues to grow. And as you can see, it's more than 100 years old. And the Lord has really blessed that magazine in numerous ways. As you think about Message Magazine, it really, in fact, is a literature evangelistic tool that continues to give. I like the statistic he pointed out that each magazine potentially reaches 3 individuals.